Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome to another edition of the Lambom Show. Today is Saturday, July 2nd, 2022. And for the first time, I'm going to be talking about soccer. We're starting off a new broadcast, a new show, new program, where we are going to be highlighting African soccer from different perspectives. We are fortunate, we are glad that we are starting off this broadcast on a day when the Women's African Cup of Nations is taking place, kicking off in Morocco, exactly, I think, in a few hours, where 12 African nations are going to be competing for the coveted trophy. The men's competition ended up in February in Cameroon, and the women's is now taking off today. I don't know a lot about soccer, and my role here is just to guide. My role is just to also sit at the feet of, call it the sports journalists, the one and only, the indefatigable Fon Echekiye. I'm glad I was able to connect with him. And if you have never had the opportunity to listen, to watch, this is the time you are going to savor every bit of it. I'm happy, Mr. Fon Echekiye, that you accepted to run this program with me. At least I don't know how long we are going to do it, at least till the World Cup. I know that for a fact. And our intention is to, just have some informal conversations, background, run. People can learn more about African soccer because you have a lot of the history. I went to Bishop Rogan College like yourself, but I never met you. But we have met on different occasions. But I think that it is proper. We have not heard you for a while. We have not seen you for a while. It's proper, and because I'm coming all the way from Washington D.C. and you're in Yaoundé, it's proper for our audience, which is going to be a very diverse audience, that you introduce yourselves. I think I'll be doing you a great justice to try to introduce you. So let me open up with you introducing yourself before we move on.
Well, Lambert, you've said it all. You've already introduced me. I don't know exactly what else you want me to say. But well, if I had to introduce myself to you, I will start by giving an idea of what my birth certificate looks like. I was born to the parents, Mr. Fon Michael Kikishi, who is of blessed memory, died on the 6th of June 1975. And my mother, Mami Anastasia Mbafon, they all hail from Noni, Jotin Noni in the northwest region of Cameroon. They traveled down to Kumba and settled there where we were born. And then subsequently, I got enrolled in the Sacred Heart School, Fiango Kumba, and proceeded from there to Bishop Rogan College, Small Sopoboya, when I hope to become a priest. And as you can see for yourself, I didn't end up becoming one. And from Bishop Rogan College, where I was one of the first 3 students at all in the history of the Cameroon GCE to have 11 O levels. The other 2 were Foncha Crisantos Alekwe and today's Dr. Peter Eyabi Bijum. And then from there, I went over to Cas Bambili, where I read chemistry, maths, further maths, and physics, because I hope to become a mechanical engineer after the flop with the priesthood. But things didn't work out well. So I went over to the Yaoundé University of Yaoundé, only one at a time. And I enrolled in the Faculty of Sciences and read mathematics. And of course, you can imagine a blue-blooded Anglophone coming in from the very Anglophone Bamenda and Puya and going over to Yaoundé to read mathematics in French, which was really very difficult at the time. So somehow one fine day, I heard about the launching of the competitive entrance examination into the School of Journalism. And so I went in for that because somehow I was an all-round student in the secondary school in Bishop Rogan College. But even before that, there was a report that the veteran sportscaster Zachary Nko was sent from Spain in 1982 before the World Cup finals, which report was recorded for me. That whole story is told in my upcoming book. I don't know whether I have to start giving all of that, otherwise the book will become redundant. However, the report by Zakarenko stuck in me, and it was something like that. It created that frenzy in me and passion. So that was how I got to enroll in the School of Journalism. in Yaoundé, and then I came out of there with a first degree in mass communications, and then went over to the Ministry of Information and Culture at the time, from where we were hired by the Cameroon Radio Television Corporation, and I was taking television, whereas I uh, had read radio, I'd been trained in radio, so it became difficult for me to really like go in for the radio broadcasting, which I don't. So what happened was that I ended up being taken to television at the time when there was something like they were like begging for staff on television. The only person I met at the time was Francis Niba. Then later on, Mike they joined us, and subsequently John Abunga Tanto. And so that was how, in so many years, I think 27 years, I did sports reporting, and from the Cameroon television, the sports desk, headed severally by Francis Emmanuel Sitwok, Jean Lambert Nang, and Daniela Nisenua. So that's where I got to know the public, the Cameroon sports public, and then they embraced me too. And then in 2019, after 28 years of service as a sports reporter for Cameroon, I went on retirement, even though I still had some 5 years to go, but that's a controversial issue that will probably be learning more about that in my upcoming book. And so that is how I became, that's how I came out of active service. And today I am on retirement, and Mr. Lambert Mbom has been the first of almost 20 people who requested to have me on the show. I said, well, this thing has gone on for too long. And so my advisor told me, I would not want to tell you who that advisor is, told me that I could not always allow good precious metal to rust, so I should come on. And that's why for this very first edition of my acceptance to come, or this first acceptance to come on the air, I gave the pride of place to Lambert. And that's why I'm right on the head right now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fon. It's an honor, it's a pleasure. I find it a privilege for me to be able to be the first person to get you on air after you retired in 2019. And like you, I also went to the seminary. You know, I was in Bishop Logan for 2 years, but I actually went to a major seminary for 7 years. So I went further than you, and it didn't work out, but that's fine. I am glad that there are a couple of things you touched on. It's a long history. It's kind of curious how a mathematician ended up becoming a sports journalist, and I'm wondering how that has worked for you, because I know, I see a couple of things you post out in terms of statistics, which is a great thing, and also history. But how has that worked out for you in terms of the science background helping you in your reporting as a sports journalist?
Okay, if I may take you back to 1984, when I was a student in the Cameroon College of Art, Science and Technology, CAST Bambili at the time. I remember that hot afternoon, I left school. In fact, this was in 83. I left school and I went to see a friend of mine, Yoba Francis Yankam, who slaughtered in an audio tape and asked me, he said, Bon, have you listened to this report by Zakarinko? I said, which report was that? And he slotted it in. I don't know what I'm chopping much of my time. I think I'm going to do a playback of that report. It will take something like 3 minutes, as it were. So when it slotted in the report, this is what came out of it. We are 3 hours away from what has been described as a decisive and important encounter. Decisive because a win for either team today will give them a right to leadership in the Four Nations Group 1, following yesterday's 1-1 tie between Italy and Peru. Decisive also because for Cameroon to make the goals this afternoon, the players must be in superlative form, offer no scoring opportunities to the Poles, who have a remarkable flair to capitalize on defense error, and of course adopt and sustain a very aggressive attacking power and spirit for full 90 minutes. Poland, 4 times World Cup finalists, want to beat Cameroon, their second all-black World Cup opponents, as they did against Haiti in West Germany 8 years ago. The question is, where do we draw the line between Cameroon and Haiti and between the years 1974 and 1982? Before this afternoon's talk of war, this is how Frenchman Jean Vincent has put up the Cameroon national football team. Goalkeeper and captain Thomas Nkono. Defenders from left to right, Kaham Michel, Onana Elundu Eli, Njea Rene and Bom Ephraim. Alpha Kunde Emmanuel, Abega Theophile, Bida Arantes, and Audu Ibrahim. Center forward Roger Mila and Gia Jacques. Before the 4:15 p.m. clash, and before this answer the question on whether or not Cameroon will make Omar, the British television sports journalist Jerry Harrison says, and I quote from the records, that the match between Cameroon and Poland will be tough and tight. Zakarinko in Spain for Radio Cameroon. So that report, it stuck in there like, what would I say, like a Christian who just joined one of these Pentecostal churches, like the flip stated me. So that was how the thing stuck in there. But of course, chemistry, math, further maths, and physics were things that I learned, that I read in Cass Bambili. Well, you know, mathematics is a science that studies quantities and spatial extensions. Physics studies the behavior of matter in relation to energy. So all of those things, since they form the base of my communication skills, it became very difficult for me to win myself away from that. And that is why continually or continuously, of course, when I did my reports, people claimed that I was sounding too scientific, and even up to this day, sometimes when I want to describe how many people are at the stadium, they give the impact of what is happening at the stadium. I talk about an Avogadro number of people at the stadium, and when they talk about how a situation that was supposed to have been as easy as a linear equation became complicated because of the folly of some players and became a very complicated polynomial and so on and so forth. That's how those things got in, and they tainted the way I do my reports.
No, Mr. Fon, again, I'm glad you mentioned Zakarinko, because again, that's an iconic figure in sports, and may he rest in peace. And again, just listening to you get back to
I
that.
wrote this book in as a tribute to him, my mentor. I said Zakarinko's ultimate commentary, because he always turned down requests to grant interviews. So when he granted this interview, it was actually the last major interview that he granted before passing on. So he died, I think, a year and a few months after this one. That's why it was titled, after he has accepted to grant me the interview, that it was his ultimate commentary.
So I think we are going to come back to that book someday to talk about that. But I'm glad that that's the person who. But the one thing I've not seen, you have not heard you mention already, is you have a rich pedigree, and I can see some things behind you. Books. I don't know what badges you have to your right, but what are those that you have behind you?
Okay, in all of my life at CRTV as a special envoy, or an envoy accredited to cover big competitions, I covered 5 World Cups right here behind me. These are the badges, accreditation badges for those World Cups. And I covered 12 Africa Cup of Nations. And these are the badges here behind me. That was thanks to CRTV. And so I also keep them as my own trophies, besides the fact we have some other books behind me, which are part of the things. In fact, let me tell you that in all of my life at CRTV, I think I wrote about 5,000 reports. And I speak to you each time when I wrote the reports. For example, I'll pull out one of these books here. I call them the Check's Diary because I kept them jealously. There were books that I wrote my reports on them. It's not like today where you have your laptops and so on and so forth. Manuscripts are such as that. So I call them a Check's Diary. Half of these books I have about 21 of them. So I have still with me at least 98% of all the more than 5,000 reports I wrote during my life at CRTV. And so it's based on that I was able to go back there and consult them to come up now with what is my own story as a journalist at CRTV, and what will be coming up entitled The Check's Diary, Memoirs from More Than a Quarter Century Reporting Sports Facts and Figures.
That is, I'm already salivating. I don't know how soon the book is coming out. Do you have a prospective date? Are we seeing it to this year, next year, or how far away are we?
I will make sure that the book gets published, or it comes out, that in the first launch should be in Yaoundé, where I reside. That should be done on the 27th or the 30th of September 2022. That will be exactly 3 years after I went on retirement.
Date noted, and I'm booking you down for a book review for that. So a couple of commentaries here. Well done, Lambert. Fon is an icon. He was 2 years ahead of me. He takes over from Zach Nkoda's Ivan Jose. I'm sure you know who that is.
I know Ivan Jose. We used to call him at Bishop Logan College Bobo Scholars.
And my dear brother and friend also in Washington, D.C., that's Divine Chamukong. I send you my regards, Fon. So
Yes, hello.
let's get into the soccer thing now. So today we are starting off this African Nations Cup, or I don't know what the correct appellation is, whether it's African Cup of Nations or African Nations Cup, and it's a
Okay,
women's.
it is called the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations. Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations. Well, you know, the competition was created by the Confederation of African Football way back in 1991. At the time, they call it the Africa Women's Championships. Then, to later on raise the level of the competition and give a stronger mark of nobility, in 2015, CAF decided to rechristen it the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. And then about 1 year on, when they signed this sponsorship deal with Total, they now started calling it the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations.
So again, there are too many things going on there. Total Energies, what's that? I mean, I know that's a gas, petrol company. They are main sponsors of the competition. And like you said, started off 1991. And so we are getting into
the 14th edition.
14th edition. What is the history? Yeah. What is the trajectory? How has that been? Because it doesn't seem to be very popular.
It doesn't seem to be very popular. That is why, ahead of the competition that kicks off tonight in Morocco, the Confederation of African Football, through its chieftain, Dr. Patrice Motsepe, has decided to raise the prize money of the competition. In fact, they are going to be spending something like, they're going to do something like 150% increase in the prize money of all what they will dish out to those who are taking part in the competitions. In fact, this year, the winner of the trophy will be making home with about 500,000 US dollars. That is up from 200,000 US dollars. And if I were to consult the records, so the runners up will be coming up with something like 175,000 US dollars, and so on and so forth. So globally, what they've done is that they are raising the standards of the competition. In fact, they argue that they want to make women's football on the African continent more competitive. So they put in everything that is going to help to vulgarize the sport, make it more popular, and make it sink in the psyche of those who chase or who run after the game of football. So they're trying to raise it at that level and to make it something worth talking about. Well, it's a whole golf apart from what happens in the United States of America, for example. But someday, somehow, they are going to make this tournament and ladies football from the African continent more competitive in the world. So that's what's going to happen at the level of the prize money. They have also decided that in the course of this tournament, they are going to implement the use of the video assistant referee for all the 28 matches that are going to be played in this year's tournament. And let me say that what Africa has done is that they have decided to make it in such a way that the 4 teams that will qualify for the semi-finals of the tournament are going to be representing the African continent in the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup competition slated for New Zealand and Australia. So whichever team goes there, they want to first of all reach the semi-finals and be sure that they have a ticket to go to the World Cup. And then there were 2 other places for grabs when they will compete, therefore, with 10 other teams coming from the other confederations to make it possible for as many of the African teams to take part in the tournament. So globally put, that's how the competition presents itself today. But you can't talk about the African women's so Total Energies Women's African Cup of Nations without mentioning the Super Falcons in Nigeria. Can you imagine that of all the 13 editions that have come and gone, Nigeria has won the tournament 11 times. That jealous parade was only tainted by Equatorial Guinea, who won twice when they hosted the competitions. So at the level of the performances, Nigeria, the Falcons of Nigeria actually fly at very, very high altitude. And every other team is simply just trying to copy a good example set by the ladies team from Nigeria.
So I'm surprised you have not mentioned your home country. What is going on with the team? especially given that there was a scandal, I think, with the former captain who used to, I think she worked for Feka Food, and there was some little problem. But where's Cameroon in this women's soccer team?
You're talking about scandals. Rumors remain that until they get published. So, so I would not want to start talking about something which only stayed as rumors and nobody actually came out to give us authentic reports of what actually happened. Yeah, but I said I was talking about the teams that have won the competition, and only Nigeria and Equatorial Guinea have done so. Cameroon did not win, so I will not be talking about Cameroon just because I'm a Cameroonian. Cameroon has not won anything. In fact, when they won the stage, the tournament, the three-time semi-final, three times finalists. When they hosted the competition in 2016, it was hoped that they were going to improve or to make up for the slip up of the 1972 African Cup of Nations, where Cameroon hosted the tournament and lost at the semi-finals. But they were defeated again by Nigeria. I remember that goal that was scored at the 83rd minute of that final game. Cameroon have only stayed at the level of final participants at the final game, those who are featured in the finalists. And as the competition gets set to start tonight, it is true that Cameroon will travel to France to do some serious, in quotes, test matches before traveling to Morocco. Well, they were whitewashed by the French national team. Not even the full strength of the national team. The French national team, I hear was Team B of the national team of France, whitewashed Cameroon by 4 goals to nothing. They are saying through the mouth of the captain, Chut Ajara, that Morocco 2022 is definitely going to be a dream come true. How that gets to fulfillment will be followed very closely when Cameroon steps into the arena tomorrow to confront Zambia, another very serious contender for the trophy.
So let's get, I mean, there are 12 teams that are participating, and you indicated earlier on that there are the 4 semi-finalists automatically qualify for the World Cup. Now, yeah. I mean, I know this is not something that you like to do, but what 4 teams are you looking out for then during this competition? What are your 4, call it, best teams you'll be watching out for? If you want to take that to 6, that's fine.
I suspected that you were going to come along with this kind of a question, so I made sure that I came into this studio with my clipboard. And if I tell you that, I can only talk for now at the level of the figures, because figures sometimes speak volumes. The African ladies football or women's football on the African continent is not given the required exposure. Maybe with the arrival of Patrice Motsepe, that's going to be done. So we've not followed them very closely. But if we can go by the figures, the teams are going to take part in the tournament in this order. Group A, that is going to be based in Rabat, excuse me, playing their games at the Prince Moulay Abdellah Stadium in Rabat. They're going to feature Morocco, Burkina Faso, Senegal, and Uganda. Now, if you go by the figures, Morocco will be making their 3rd appearance at the finals, and they're going to be the host side. So definitely, the home setting advantage is going to play to their favor. And the determination that the team has ever since they were given the hosting rights of the tournament, it's everyone's guess. They are going to begin the competition tonight against Burkina Faso, who are just making their debut in the tournament. What you can imagine, in whose favor that could easily swing. But be careful. This issue of saying that figures speak volumes can sometimes be very, very, very misleading. Remember, in 1990, when Cameroon went for the World Cup finals in Italy, they had just had a shabby performance at the African Cup of Nations, and everybody knew that Cameroon was going to be reduced to a laughing stock in the tournament. But in the opening game, Cameroon subdued Argentina by 1 goal to nothing. Then there's also Senegal, who will be going there for the 2nd participation. Now, Senegal is a country that, as we speak, are still caressing or still bathing in the steam of the celebrations of the African Cup of Nations that they won for the first time in Cameroon. So the performance of the male squad is certainly going to inspire the ladies as they get set for the 2nd participation in the women's competition. In the same group, they're going to be facing Uganda, who are going to be off to their 2nd participation in the tournament. So therefore, in that group, if you have to go by the figures and the the surrounding arguments in terms of who is hosting and which crowd the team, which crowd is going to be behind which team, it makes more sense for me to imagine that Morocco will be sailing through from Group A. Now, if for Morocco, and to a certain extent, Senegal, because of the strong psychological medication that's been provided for by the performance of the Teranga Lions of Senegal at the last Africa Cup of Nations. Now, there is going to be Group B, based in Casablanca, whose matches were played at the Mohammed V Stadium. In that group, you have Cameroon, who will participate in a tournament for the 12th time. They have never had the good luck, as I would say. They've never been able to win this tournament. And as they got set to go to Morocco, the team captain, Ajara, was saying that we are going to make it this time around. There is no way you're going to stop Cameroon from making it. Even the president of the Football Federation, Samuel Eto'o, Africa's highest goal scorer in the AFCON, has said that by losing to France, it was to be expected. But that was a formidable sparring partner for the Cameroon team, and that he expects nothing short of a semi-final appearance in the African competition. In fact, he's urging the girls to win this tournament and so lay to rest for once and for all. Popular believes that the ladies team could never, ever, ever move in the trail of the Lions. Then there is Zambia, who are going to the competition for the third time. The Zambia is a side that could spring a major surprise. Why do I say this? Zambia has some players that you can count on in the African game, but just that their most versatile player, what you can call the pearl of the team, a certain Barbara Banda, has been sidelined. She's not part of the teams retained for the tournament. We are told that it's because of issues with health. I don't know what those issues are. We just got them as issues that have to do with health. Others are saying it has to be some high levels of testosterone that disqualified her for this competition. But I cannot guarantee that. So Zambia will be part of a tournament. Then Tunisia are going into the tournament for the second time. But how is Tunisia going to this tournament? During the a recent tournament that was played in Nigeria, I think Madame Buhari's Cup, Tunisia produced wonderful soccer in Nigeria, and it's been said and given all the credits that Tunisia could be the site that would prevent Cameroon from dropping Group B. So, and then there is Togo, who will be making their first appearance in the finals. Now, Togo, they have really nothing to write home about. So, therefore, from Group B, I would suggest that Cameroon and Zambia will be qualifying. And then in Group C, whose games we play still in Rabat, you have
Okay, I think
in Nigeria. Nigeria were making, sorry about that. Saudi won that tournament 11 times. So Nigeria is actually going to the tournament for what they call a deja vu. So we don't expect any team to stop Nigeria except maybe Cameroon or to an extent Morocco. So you have Nigeria and then South Africa, who are going to the tournament for the 11th time. So that tells you that Group C is what we commonly refer to as a group of death. You have Burundi, their first appearance, Botswana, first appearance. So straight away, you can just say Nigeria and South Africa would certainly be making their emerging from that group on top. So Nigeria, South Africa, Cameroon, Zambia, Morocco, and Senegal should be the 6 teams I think should qualify for the quarterfinals of that tournament.
Thank you very much for that. And again, tons of commentaries coming on. So this Dr. Evaristo Mensah is based in New York. Great discussion and great to see you, Fon. You should know him. Divine Chamukong, Lambert, can we meet with Fon at Malaika Kitchen? So Divine is presuming that you are here in DC. Fon is actually coming to us from Cameroon. But Malaika's Kitchen is a great sponsor of this show. So I will take the drink on your behalf this evening, Fon. Ivo says, Lambert, how often will be this darling program and already fan number one? So again, we intend this to be weekly, but that's going to depend on how Fon and I arrange it. We want to cover this competition and we are building up towards the World Cup, but we'll keep you informed as to how this goes. Harrison Okwara, grade one, sir. Stephen Angafo, that's my friend in the UK who is also a Bishop Brogan student. Greetings, Mr. Fon. Your talents have been a blessing to us. They went a long way to initiate and sustain our love for this beautiful game. May our footprints in the sands of Cameroon sports journalism never be eroded by the winds of history. They will never be. And this is the most interesting comment that I wanted you to see. Albert Usmanu, that's Metro Jaro based in Minnesota. Lambert, tell Fon that a few of us gave him his broadcasting start in cast. As a star player and captain of, I think that should be Unité, if I'm not mistaken, that won the CAS Cup. Why some of us are not mentioned in his book is not good. So can you do you have a response to that, Fon? I think again, we remember Fon is coming to us from Cameroon, so it might be a problem there with connectivity. Can you hear me, Fon? Well, let me keep reading the comments there. Harrison says this is good. Anselm, loving it. Good to hear from the veteran journalist. So I think there's a connectivity issue as was to be expected. But again, if you are just joining us, I have been on set with veteran sports journalist Fon Echekiye, who is coming to us from Cameroon. And we have just been talking there about the African Cup of Nations, the Women's African Cup of Nations competition that is beginning today in Morocco. And Fon gave us a rundown of the teams. If you missed that, Group 1 is made up of Morocco, Burkina Faso, Senegal, and Uganda. And the projection there is Morocco and Senegal may be able to sail over to the second round. Group 2 made up of Cameroon, Zambia, Tunisia, and Togo. The projection there is for Cameroon and maybe Tunisia to move over to the second round. And Group 3 made up of Nigeria, South Africa, Burundi, and Botswana. It's expected that Nigeria and South Africa will move on to the second round. So again, these things, always have to make room for connectivity issues. I'm sure Fon is trying to reconnect. Can you hear me, Fon? It's frozen there, so I don't know what is going on, but technology is failing us. But it will continue. Again, if you are just joining, you are on the Lambom Show, talking to veteran sports journalist Fon Echekiye, and we have just been going through the African Cup of Nations that is about to kick off in Morocco this evening. Fon has given us a background to his journalism. He's an ex-student of Bishop Brogan College, a small support minor seminary, and also CAST Bambili. And he went on to do to read math at the University of Yaoundé before becoming a sports journalist through the inspiration of Zakarinko of blessed memory. And Fon has taken us through a history of 27 years reporting for CRTV, Cameroon Radio Television, as a sports journalist, and what that experience has been. I think he has covered 5 World Cups and 12 African Cup of Nations. I think that's a record. He has a rich pedigree, and I'm glad he's currently working on a book that he intends to release in September. Let me try to see what I can get Fon. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry for the technical hitches. this again, when you are broadcasting with people from Cameroon, you know, connectivity is an issue. I wish I wish we could do something to improve on connectivity across the continent. Again, I see Stephen. I can remember that in the days of Fon, such interruptions will immediately be blanked with an interlude of music. Yes, Steve, I get the point, but I really let me see what I can get him on some. Okay, so Fon is trying to connect again. Give us a few minutes and we'll see how that goes through. I'm sorry about this. I think the connection issues are just too much of. So let me get some music on as proposed by my dear friend Steve. Let me see which one I can get on. Of course, we should get the famous one. So again, if you are just joining us, we are waiting for Fon to join us. He was on and just got disconnected. But don't walk, you don't try. It's a first to the vibe. Baby, me and not bed. You don't walk, you don't try. It's a first to the vibe. Yeah. Don't sleep, wake up. Cause I want it, wake up. Cause I want don't walk, you don't drive. You supposed to be guy. Kill up, come, you go, person, what up, person, we don't mind, but when I land softly, only so far from, so far, so good, only by Joe, let me see you, oh, lo, let me see you, oh, lo, let me see you, the buga, oh, lo, let me see you, oh, lo, Okay. So again, sorry, I think connectivity issues that are to be expected. So we have Fon back on. Can you hear me?
There's still a problem.
Yes. So you can barely hear me? I can hear you.
Yes, I do now.
Okay, cool.
I do.
Sorry. You saw the comment there by Gosong Ben, Courage Lambert, and kudos to Fon Echekiye. So again, there was a comment I wanted you to respond to. That was from one of your friends. The Metro Gyro is in Minnesota. Albert Usmana, you should know him. Tell Fon that a few of us gave him his broadcasting start in cast as a star player and captain of, I don't know whether that's Unite or Unite, that won the cast cup. Why some of us are not mentioned in his book is not good.
Yeah, I remember what actually happened in Cas Bambini was that, you know, in that school we had what we called social clubs. I think at the time there were 6 of them. I belonged to a club called Sukamak. You had Unite, you had Sonara, you had Oriel, you had 2 others, I think. And those clubs, they gave preference to football, and those football matches took place Sunday afternoons. And the lone field that was there at the time, I don't know how many we have there now. And I used to, what happened was that there was a Stone adjunct Michael, who along with Gonga and Ray came over to the field with a radio cassette set. So we connected it to a loudspeaker, and we could start running commentaries of matches during the football games. And I did that with a certain francophone colleague at the time called Sakia Moni. I don't know where he is today. So that's how we began in the cast league. So it became like, it was like, wow, who is this guy from the science department who comes and is challenging the guys from the art department, is running commentaries in such technical English? So that was how I made my mark at the time in that school. So when I left Rangoli and I went over to the University of Yaoundé, there were those of them who kept on reminding me that, mind, you have the calling for journalism. Drop this whole thing you call mechanical engineering and then get journalism. And so we on by that, and fact, I end up meeting face to face my mentor at the time, Zachary Ho. That was how I got encouraged to go into the Nations School of Journalism. So I very well understand what Usmani is saying. The question I want to ask Usmani is, the book is still to be launched in the last days of September. How do you know I've not mentioned a name of the book?
That's what I was about to ask him, but again, thank you for doing that. I mean, I ought to have given you a follow-up with respect to Zakarinko. Did you ever report side by side with Zakarinko, and what was that experience like?
I did once, but I did not report. What happened was that I still remember that because it happened just once. I was a student in the School of Journalism. That was in the first year, and there was an international match being played at the Mario Stadium. So I found myself in the commentary booth. He was running commentaries. I remember there was a penalty kick that was taken, and still fresh in my knowledge of algebra, angles, and so on and so forth in mathematics. I came and stood by him, and he turned and looked at me. It was as if he was asking me, "Do you want to say something?" I still remember what I said because it happened just once, and things that happen just once, they stay forever. I just said he lost that penalty because the angle of deviation was not large enough to defeat the goalkeeper. And he turned and looked at me and nodded in approval.
Good. So, Talato, interesting listening to Big Bro Fon. I was going to carry my cassava as the rain subsided here in Mujang. I'm tied here now listening to this great sport journalist. My regards to him. And he also came back to say that was not the start of his journalism. He used to do commentaries during our dormitory competitions in Morocco. He wrote sport reports in our journal, The Herald. So again, let's get back to Morocco. I'm sure you have reported from Rabat and
I didn't.
Go ahead. Funny, it seems you're saying something.
No, I covered matches. I said I covered 12 Africa Cup of Nations. I said I covered 12 editions of the Africa Cup of Nations, but I never covered anyone in Morocco because when the finals were hosted by Morocco in 1988, I was still a student in the School of Journalism. I think I was in the second year then. So I went to Morocco just once. I think it was Cameroon's ultimate game to qualify for the World Cup finals in South Africa in 2010. We were neither in Rabat nor in Casablanca. That match was played in Fez. So we went and covered the match there and left. I think that was the match that created some trouble for CRTV management at the time. I remember there was an anecdote to that effect. When we arrived in Morocco, the entire nation was waiting for the pictures of that match. And then somehow it became difficult to have the pictures come across. And it was like everybody was panicking here. And it was like the management at the time had their necks on the line. And I went and suggested that they could get in touch with the Moroccan embassy in Cameroon to get their decoder and then get that to CRTV. CRTV could broadcast the pictures of the matches from there. But a haughty junior staff who was eyeing the position that I kept at the time wrote to the general manager and told him that I myself and Emmanuel Jonas Kanga at the time that we were celebrating that Cameroon was not receiving the pictures, and that because of that, the two men in charge, Professor Francis Wete, the deputy, and Amadou Bamoke, the main man in charge, were going to be fired. That was how the information came to CRTV, and were reliably informed that because of that, we were prevented from traveling to Angola to cover the Africa Cup of Nations, which was supposed to have been something like a dress rehearsal for the World Cup finals coming on South Africa. So when they got to know the truth about it, the general manager came back to his position, and then that was how I found myself in South Africa. But to come back to your story, I've not covered any Cup of Nations there. But this kind of environment, of course, when you go to Rome, do as the Romans do. So if you live as a Christian and you go to a predominantly Muslim environment, you have to respect the rules of the game, just like, and vice versa. So the kinds of things that would happen when you're on mission in an environment that is not sternly attached to some kinds of to a certain doctrine or to some faith, the situation is completely different. So I couldn't be able to write much about that. Even in Egypt, I didn't cover any Cup of Nations in Egypt, but I went there on 2 occasions with Cotton Sport of Garoua when they played in the continental finals. And those environments, those typically Muslim environments, they don't offer the same kinds of opportunities that the Christian environments in quotes would offer to us. Just like the Muslims to a Muslim reporter will say that the Christian environment doesn't offer the same kind of. It's not like I'm not stigmatizing anybody. I'm just like saying that a Makusa dancer might not find it very easy dancing if we were to join a crowd of Bikutsi dancers. That's just what I'm saying.
Excellent. So let's move on, Fon. So again, I'm wondering, we talked about this. What does the continent need to do in order to improve on soccer, women's soccer? I'm looking back in Cameroon. I don't know. I saw something about the current president trying to, pay or encourage teams, bring forth players, because I don't think that women's soccer is that developed in many African countries. That is why you find even the 12 teams that have qualified, you see some of them coming in for the first, second time. So what is it? Even when you look at the roster of players taking part in the competition, they are all concentrated in a few countries, so South Africa, then the Maghreb region, that's where you have lots of them playing. Then a couple of them are playing out in Europe. I was fascinated to see 2 or 3 players playing in the United States. There's some that actually came from universities, playing soccer here. So what does the continent need to do in order to improve on women's soccer?
Well, I think this is a shouting case, like the shouting case of a common factor in a quadratic equation or in a polynomial. This is a shouting case of male chauvinism. They say everything woman has not much of value. So they've put in so much money in the male football that they put the female football to the doldrums. And that's why CAF has said that this was a wrong signal that's been sent around the African continent. So what is happening with African football at the level of the women is that the various powers that be have not invested much. And when you quote the case of Cameroon, Samuel Eto'o, the president of the Cameroon Football Federation, says that he's going to take female football out of the doldrums. What does he mean by that? He's going to give them the required sponsors. Just like Lambert cannot have this show run on if he doesn't inject much money into whatever he's doing. I'm not saying that he's paying me for what I'm doing. I'm just saying that for him to be able to have his implements and his tools together, he needs to put money into the business. So if you want football to get to a certain level, that football made by women to get to a certain level, first thing is you have to inject a lot of money. Sponsors should come into the game. Secondly, you have to break down the barriers of saying that women were not meant to play football. Yet somebody, just before we began this chat, somebody was telling me that from that, as far as he was concerned, women were not supposed to play football, neither were they supposed to get involved into martial arts, sports, and stuff like that. That's not the thing. God made man and woman. I don't think at any point God said that you be the one to play football or the other one to play basketball or handball and stuff like that. So you have to break down the barriers, traditional barriers of traditions and customs that prevent women from being given the opportunity to go at football at full pelt. So when you would have changed that approach to things, you would have been able to take women's football out of doldrums. It's happening elsewhere out of the African continent. And that is why CAF is saying that we want to make women's football competitive. And if you are making women's football competitive, you are giving it what it requires. And when you give it what it requires and it becomes competitive, it can therefore challenge the other places, the other parts of the world, wherever football has been instituted. Look at African footballers like Sadio Mane. Look at Samuel Eto'o, Patrick Mboma, Roger Milla. Those were people who came out, who were of African descent. Now they come to play football made in Europe. and they're teaching the so-called white man the rules of his own game. I've been beating him at it. So try to create an enabling environment for them to be able to thrive, and then they'll be able to deliver the results.
So again, I think that many people should be able to follow because again, like we said, this is not something that is very popular amongst the African audience. People should also be able to watch the games and encourage, like you said, sponsorship of these. People register teams. It's, I mean, the same cry we have had for within Anglophone Cameroon in terms of many people were not, we saw soccer as something that was meant for people who are not smart, isn't it? So many parents did not want their kids to play soccer. You know, I don't know whether that has changed now, but I think it's something that we need to get into. I don't know why you're laughing from, but
no, but I'm just laughing at what the truth in what you are saying. It makes me laugh because so how funny it is that the truth has finally prevailed at sunset. So, you know, when you and I went to school at the time, the parents would say that, hey, drop that thing you call football and go to the class. But now the thing has turned around, the tables have turned around and are saying that drop that rubbish you call football, or rather drop that rubbish you call book and go and play football so that you can be able to bring us the money back into our country and improve the foreign. That's what is happening now. So it's the same, it's just the same kind of thing. There's a change of mentality. People have to change their mentality and on how they look at some of these things. I believe, being a Roman Catholic Christian, I believe that when God made man, he endowed man with certain possibilities, with certain abilities, with certain talents. And it is not at our level to forestall those talents. God could have decided at some point that a certain young lady would do better in football than if he became a volleyball player. That she would do better in football if he had to go and pursue education in things like the sciences and stuff like that. So they should let things flow, make it possible for each and every person to grasp and to embrace what the thing is theirs, and let them create an enabling environment. And you will see stars and blooming and blossoming out of the blues. So I think that's what should be done. I have to bring in the right curriculum for the children who come to school, and they have to climb up the academic ladder. There's time for football or sports, that there's time for bookwork. And then at the end of the day, you'll be able to draw the conclusion on where actually the divine law decided that you should go to. Was it going to become an athlete or become an academician or a professional, as you might want to say? So make it possible for people to be able to grasp, give them the necessary enabling environment and the support and sponsorship, and you will see how that goes.
I miss this voice again. After 3 years coming back, I'm sure that many people have, they're happy to have you back. And Gosong says, Ngachu did well with the girls, but as it was, God alone knows. I don't know who Ngachu is. You may have an insight into.
No, Carl Enon Ngachu was the coach for the Cameroon ladies football team. Yeah, he took them to the several competitions, African Nations Cup, or rather the African Games, Olympic Games, and so on and so forth. But it's not because he was doing so well that he would have stayed at that place forever. So it was in recognition of what he did for the team that they decided to name him the first general manager of the Cameroon Football Academy.
So that touches on something that I wanted us to talk. Before we go over to the men's teams. I mean, you look at, it seems as if there are more men coaching the women. I don't know how many women coaches are going on, but that's kind of straight. Well, it is to be expected because it's the game itself. The women, we have not had women in active soccer competitions like the men, so that's to be expected. But I think it's time for more women to be coaching women soccer players than having men, especially knowing some of the things that have happened over the years. I don't know, what is your take on that?
Lambert, is that coming from you or coming from the audience? Well, I know those who own and manage sporting institutions know what they want. When they go out for the talent, they go for the talent that can deliver. So I don't think that they leave and go out there in search of talents or managers for the various sporting disciplines based on gender. I don't think that's what it is. It's just that at the time when they want this particular kind of result for this particular kind of sporting institution, they're going out for this particular kind of expertise. So I think it's just a coincidence that it happens that it is going the way it is going, that generally only male do coach male teams here. But I would want to tell you that there is a famous Cameroonian athlete called Victorine Fomum. I think it was at one point, or she is still one of the best table tennis players this country has seen. Victorine Fomum, from the name, you know, she's it's a lady. She coached a team in Yaoundé called Dragon Yaoundé, and that was the male team. So those cases are isolated, but I don't think that it has to do with gender. It just has to do with what the managers and owners of sporting institutions want for themselves as the required technical expertise.
I like the piece you add, what the managers want for themselves. I hope they don't want the players for themselves, but that's a conversation. For
What I mean in terms of results.
Yes, we have Mwalimu Gemo. Thank you, Big Brother Lambert, for bringing on Bigger Brother Fon. I've taken a break from Wimbledon to watch you. But let's move over to the men's team. We have five of them that have qualified for the World Cup coming up. I don't know. I mean, where are we with that? I'm not seeing anything moving on in terms of preparations. They just had the international break with competitions for next year's African Cup of Nations, where we saw the teams. So where are we with those teams? What are the teams, by the way?
No, the teams from the African continent who are going to be flying the colors of African football and the World Cup finals in Qatar are 5: Senegal, Morocco, Tunisia, Ghana, and Cameroon. Talking about the preparations for those teams, you know, generally those preparations gather steam about 2 months to the start of the competition. So for now, they have other things to take care of. And of course, I think for now, the various technical staffs are moving around and scouting for players to have the best at their disposal when they challenge on the global stage. Now, Senegal, Morocco, Tunisia, Ghana, and Cameroon are 5 teams that have 22 participations at the World Cup amongst them, or in between them, with 3 appearances at the quarterfinals of the competition. So that tells you something about the growth and how much mark the African football is making on international scene. So you wanted to know what is happening to them. For now, what we know about them is the latest FIFA ranking: Senegal at 18th, Morocco 22nd, Tunisia 30th, Cameroon 38th, and Ghana 60th. Those are the numbers. And what do those numbers say? They say that of the queue of about 210, getting to 12 member federations of FIFA, those are the ranks for the 5 African representatives. You want to ask me, what do I think could happen? Well, we've just come to the end of the qualifiers, and certainly the various teams are going to be very, very different from the teams that qualify them for the finals. You know, sometimes you have players who do the qualification and those who are required when you have to marshal the teams on the international stage. So you wouldn't say much about them for now, except for their records. But you know that records sometimes only help you. They only help you to prop you up psychologically. Whereas the prevailing whatever you have, the prevailing stars, the prevailing human resources in terms of players that you have are what would determine what happens to you at the end of the day. So, but I think that the 5 teams as they are, they each have solid arguments why they should represent the African continent at the World Cup finals. And so all we can do is, maybe if you ask me this question in the next 2 months, I'll be able to give you a better answer. But for now, what can speak for them solely for now, simply the record so far.
So, Emmanuel Shea, that voice, it's been long. I've not heard this voice. Fon Echekiye, the legend. Thanks for making me see my brother again. That's Father Maurice Akwa, who is, and I think okay. I really don't want to ask this question today. I don't want us to get to this question today because I think it's premature. But I think
which one is that?
What is Fon's
which one is that?
Those few months so far in office.
Sorry?
What is Fon's appraisal of Eto's few months so far in office? I don't know whether you want to talk about. You want to do that?
Well, don't give the impression to the viewership that you gave me the questions before the chat began. If you have any questions to ask me, you ask me the question. I'll give you the answer that I have. Well, Samuel Etofi's he got into this thing first of all to challenge the old order, and he succeeded in challenging the old order and became the president of the federation. Now, he had his manifesto. He gave us certain things he intended to accomplish with Cameroon football. And I think by and large, he has been accomplishing them. But there is something, a major puzzle that he has not been able to handle. And I think that if he did handle that puzzle, he'll be able to have a lot cleared and working well for the federation. And what is this? Make peace with the General Assembly members of the 2009 body of FECAFOOT. That has not been done. What he decided to do was to do what they call divide and rule. And whoever does divide and rule receive just the results that they deserve. But for now, whatever thing Eto'o has been doing so far, he has brought the football to the people, has brought football to the media, and the stadiums are being jammed full, relatively speaking, as the days evolve. As we speak now, they have what they call the playoffs, which was something that was unheard of in some years gone by. What happened was that when they came into office, so much time had elapsed, and they need to catch up with what CAF had given Cameroon as the international calendar that had to be followed. And for him to be able to do that, he created two pools of the championship and made sure that they were close in obtaining the champions and advisory from the playoffs. And as we speak, Cotton Sport and Edin will playing the final game tomorrow to obtain the champions of Cameroon for this season. I think Eto'o should be given a pat on the back for that. He's been able to pay off some of the debts that had been so chronic on the backs of FECAFOOT. He's been able to bring some amount of cohesion amongst some of the people who manage football in the country. But of course, human beings being what they are, and when they misplace priorities, they always quarrel with everything you do. Sometimes there's a human being who complains that you didn't greet them in the morning. When you greet them in the evening, they ask you, why did you greet me in the evening? And so on and so forth. So I think that so far, grosso modo, Eto'o is living up to expectation, although he could do better.
Thank you very much. And I think at this point, let me see. We are on the 1 hour mark. Somebody is coming up again. My question is, what do you think about the promise made about the Bamenda Stadium? Is it going to be a reality or same promises that are never fulfilled? Again,
is that a question? So what do I think about it?
Yes,
it was a great promise. Not so. But after the promise, we'll now find out whether that promise can find practical expression. And so that's what we're waiting for now. You are waiting for that. I'm equally waiting for that too.
Good. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I promised Mr. Fon that we're going to be on for 1 hour. I don't want this to be something that burdens us, but I want to see the response has been overwhelming. And I really want to thank you, Mr. Fon, for the time we have spent. We intend this to be weekly, but as I said at the beginning, we are going to adjust as times change. But Saturdays at this time, if something comes up, we'll be able to adjust that. I really wanted to take the last part to talk about. Yes.
Lambert.
Yes, sir.
Lambert.
Okay, I can hear you.
Yeah. Go ahead. You seem to be wrapping off. Just somebody sent you're wrapping off. Somebody sent a parallel question to my second number, and the question of the person was have a haircut this afternoon, and this is exactly where I am today. So I hope that question is answered.
Right. So again, I said I don't want to.
Yeah.
I really want us just to keep to the 1 hour mark, so that again people can. It's a Saturday. There are many things. That are. Competing for your time. We intend to improve on this to get better. And
Yes,
if you like the show today,
there's one of them. There's one of them things that I take care of my time, because it's important for me to go back into my kitchen and get that catty ready before the match begins this evening.
Right. So again, you heard the veteran journalist himself say it. He's on retirement. He has been on retirement for 3 years. He's just coming back on. It means we are going to need a lot of support for this program to go through. If you want to, we are going to start making sure that we have sponsorships. You want to support his work, you can reach me. What's the number? Let me put your number on so that we can. What number can people reach you on for?
The same number that the producer of this program reached me on.
Okay, I'm going
00237 656 262 396. Second and last time, 00237 656 262 396.
So again, please, that's Fon's number. Next week when we come on, there's going to be the ability for you to send some donations to support him, support the show. But we want to take this. We want this to be a weekly broadcast. We also want to make sure that his time is.
Is a donation to support me or to support the show?
No, to support you, and then we'll grow the show together.
I guess the donation is to support the show. So to support the show.
Right. Support the show, please. That's the correct.
Well, Lambert. Well, I said the donation is to support the show. But Lambert, I just wanted to add a chip in, because you've been mentioning about retirement. Because sometimes people think that when you go retirement, because it's time for you to start roasting. But one major thing I'm doing right now is that I am an executive bureau member of the International Federation for Football History and Statistics. There are 3 of us from Africa, and in the 14-member global bureau, I am the only black. So that's what I'm doing right now. And shortly, as we said, it's going to be a kind of stuff that runs on YouTube. But that's just around the corner. You see that. But that doesn't take anything away from my participation on the Saturday show with Lambert.
So again, there's something that Fon is bringing on. Well, of course, you see, I was glad that I'm the first person in 3 years to be able to get him on, and I'm glad that he started off here. But he says there's something that he's planning. He's running. When he's right, we'll announce it. But I was also saying we need support for this show. If you want to support us, we'll start next week and make sure. I see there's a lot of enthusiasm. Samson Bilam coming from that is in Norway. Nice to listen to this legendary Fon. He is too smart to retire. But thank you, Fon. You have any last words? Next Saturday, I hope we'll get a better connectivity and we'll be able to run through hitch-free. Any last words?
The last word is that I gave you my word, and I'm going to keep the word.
Greetings to Lambert and Fon Crisanto sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the show. This is the first. Fon is coming to us from Yaoundé, and I'm based in Washington, D.C., so connectivity issues, but it was great. Many commentaries, many people excited. Fon has a book that is coming up that's going to be launched September 30th. We're going to keep you posted. I will want to get a copy of the commentary on Zakarinko. I will see how to get that on next week so that we can talk about that. Until then, join Fon in eating kati and watching the Total Energies Women's African Cup of Nations competition in a few. Thank you all. Happy Saturday and see you next week. Bye-bye.